Hello and welcome to our Zoom education session on the importance of self-compassion for caregivers. Thank you for joining us for this discussion today. My name is Sarah Cook and I'm the Public Education Coordinator at the Alzheimer's Society of Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Northumberland, and Haliburton. And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome back Anne-Marie Peters, who is our Society social worker with our First Link program, and she's going to provide the presentation for today. This presentation will explain what self-compassion is and the impact that it has on our physical, emotional, and cognitive health. We will also discuss how important it is for caregivers to embrace self-compassion and how self-compassion can empower caregivers as they continue with their essential role in supporting the person living with dementia. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Anne-Marie, and thank you so much for providing this presentation today for us.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Shelby. And thank you all for coming and attending. So, without further ado, as Sarah said, I'll just let my son quietly get out. Welcome to today's session on the importance of self-compassion for caregivers. Today, we're going to talk about what self-compassion is, the impacts on health, the physical, emotional, and cognitive, the challenges to achieve self-compassion, and some strategies of how to practice self-compassion. And it's really important that I tell you that these strategies are not going to be difficult strategies. This is going to be a hard sell because it is so difficult to convince people to stop being so self-critical and recognize that you are all doing the best you can. You really, really are. So, for someone to develop genuine compassion towards others, first, he or she must have a basis upon which to cultivate compassion. And that basis is the ability to connect to one's own feelings and to care for one's own welfare. Caring for others requires caring for oneself. And this is a quote from the Dalai Lama. It is a difficult task to truly love and accept ourselves. It is one of the biggest barriers to practicing self-compassion, and yet it is what is required to do so. I chose the image of the infant because we were all once like this child, pure innocence. There was a time when we were born and people were thrilled to meet us and admired us just because. Not because of what we did or our talents or achievements, but because we were just us, pure and innocent. The essence and potential of who we are is deep within us. And all the life we have lived is a culmination of what we have learned, our environment, experiences, influences, and our early conditioning. So when we think about who we are and what we've experienced, our mistakes and our choices really don't define us and who we are as a person. Because when we think about who we were back, say, in our teens and then in our 30s and who we are today, we really aren't the same people. We really do change over time, and we probably have changed our thoughts and our values and what we believe possibly over time. So that's a really important thing to remember, because we still, really, the essence of who we are, that purity still exists in us despite all the things that have happened around us. So, in a nutshell, self-compassion is simply giving the same kindness to ourselves that we would give to others. So the 4 components of self-compassion are mindful awareness, being aware of our own pain and self-criticism, common humanity, that pain is a shared human experience. We are all sort of, we are all prepared to suffer and struggle, and that this is something that we all experience. It's not a personal failure. Self-kindness, feeling kindness and care towards self as if towards others. And alleviation. Our goal is to lessen our pain through courage, perspective, and caring actions. Now, these actions need not be grand or expensive or monumental. They could be as small as gently telling yourself, it's okay, I made a mistake, I can fix this. And it really is about being really, gentle and kind and not beating ourselves up. So, as the cartoon says, he's a very compassionate cat. He never kills any of the animals he catches. I thought that this would be what compassion would look like in a cat and would probably be the extent of it. And I actually had a cat that would never kill the mice. He would just play with them. And I really thought it would be more compassionate if he killed them. But anyway, just a little humor. So, at this point, I want to make the distinction between compassion and empathy because we hear these words used interchangeably. Compassion is feeling concern for another's suffering with a desire to alleviate their suffering, whereas empathy is feeling into another. So as the little picture depicts, I feel so bad for the dog that I end up wearing the cone of shame with the dog. That's empathy. I'm going to feel this pain with the dog. Whereas compassion is just feeling, oh, the poor dog, and trying to offer some comfort. So empathy is a precursor and primes compassion. Compassion is other-oriented, whereas empathy is self-oriented. The intention to alleviate others' suffering or our own suffering is a key component to being compassionate. How we are compassionate is not necessarily risking our own well-being to ease other people's suffering. It can be listening with an open and non-judgmental heart. It can be sending out good intentions and wishes, saying a prayer, donating. It could be bearing witness to the suffering and acknowledging the person with kindness. It does not require us to suffer along with the other or take the person's place. So, do you remember when you were a kid and you didn't eat all the food on your plate? And you were told about all the starving kids in Africa? This was the line I heard all the time. Feeling guilt and shame only led to potential eating disorders and did nothing for the kids in Africa. This was not helpful. So, yeah, you ate all the food, but it didn't change. It wasn't the compassionate act. There were other things that we could have done to be more compassionate. So the idea is, and then that, we don't want to end up adding to our own suffering and thinking that that's compassion or empathy. So the good news, or actually, I need to go back here. So sometimes, if not often, you may feel the urge to be the hero and go and rescue someone, to try to step in and be all-knowing, or act like a parent, or become a martyr, or to try to become the expert and fix. These are roles that as caregivers we can fall into because we feel the need to have a sense of control because things are so overwhelming. And it's really scary to connect with our feelings. It may even be scarier to get in touch with what we need in that situation. And it's even scarier to think about all the judgment and the expectations that may exist around us externally, and even to think about our own judgments and expectations because we know they exist. But the good news is that we survived as a species because of our ability to give and receive care and be compassionate. According to research, even young children exhibit helping behavior. Our species has the capacity for altruistic behavior, and research suggests that it is inborn and not at all socialized. We actually developed a system outside of our instinctive drives for survival called the affiliative system that allows us to bond and form relationships and feel empathy and compassion. So now I'm going to show you the neuroscience. So, as you see this slide depicts the brain regions that are active when one person on the left experiences pain and the person on the right witnesses the person on the left experiencing pain. And as you will notice, on the left, the yellow squares are where the person is sensing the pain, and then in the blue circles are how they perceive the pain. And then the other person is watching, and their blue areas actually activate as well, which is really fascinating. So for example, if you're either watching TV and you see someone get hurt, you actually have that reaction. So some of us are actually quite sensitive to this. I'm particularly sensitive to this. When I see someone get hurt, I have this reaction, and it's like I have phantom pain, where I was like, oh, ouch, right? So in particular, lately, I've been watching a little too much hockey. So when I see a really bad hit, I go, ouch. And sometimes I actually feel that pain. And sometimes if you go to the ER with your kids, if some of you have had to do that, then if they're, your child's getting a needle, or you see someone with a really bad broken, you can feel it in your body. And this is the part of the brain that lights up when that happens, because you actually connect with past experiences that remind you of that pain. And I think that's so fascinating. So we have what are called mirror neurons in the brain. So a mirror neuron is a neuron that fires both when an animal acts and when the animal observes the same action performed by another. These neurons are believed to be involved in our ability to engage in empathy and compassion. So this is how we were able as a species to form bonds and to imitate and to learn language. It's just fascinating that we can do this, and that total imitation. So when you're, remember holding an infant and you would make a face and they would make a face back. These are the neurons that actually help do this. However, the challenge for empathy when you are actually feeling with someone is that it can lead to triggering a stress response in you if you over-identify with the pain of another. So this could lead to a secondary trauma or vicarious trauma. So again, like I said, empathy is that capacity to merge with, understand, or identify that experience of feeling with someone. We do this in 3 ways: physically, emotionally, or cognitively, through perspective taking. So as a group of women, if we've all had children, we can share childbirth stories, and sometimes we have that, oh, I remember that. Emotionally, if we talk about grief or the loss of someone we've cared about, we can wake up those feelings emotionally. And cognitively, If we talk about an experience through perspective, we can kind of go, oh yeah, I remember that pain of going through the teen years. So we can wake up those experiences. However, the fine balance here is that we connect to our own memories, our own experiences. They don't necessarily have to be the same, but they actually can trigger a stress response. And if they were challenging, difficult, or painful, it becomes a distressing response. So here's another example of what happens in the brain. So if we go with the empathy network, which is the two blue circles, what we wake up is more self-related emotion because we're just feeling with. And what happens is we wake up the negative feelings and we activate the amygdala and start a stress response. And this leads to poor health and burnout. Because again, we're waking up the amygdala, we're starting the cortisol and the adrenaline, and we start to withdraw and have non-social behavior. If we practice self-compassion, which I'm going to talk about later, we start to be able to recognize the other and relate our experience and recognize the other and relate our emotion to the other person. We begin to have positive feelings and we don't go into the negative, we don't experience bad health, but we start to have more pro-social motivation. So you can see that more areas in the front start to wake up and we begin to activate the compassion network. And that's what our goal is. And that's what practicing self-compassion can help us do. So this is what happens when we go into empathetic distress versus empathetic concern, okay? Because we know that empathy can prime us for compassion, but we want to end up in compassion, not in a stress response where all of a sudden we're feeling dysregulated, okay? So we're sitting with someone, we see something. I happened to drive by the other day, I was driving to Toronto, I saw a car accident. So I'm triggered, I'm reminded of a car accident I was in. Well, if I go into dysregulation, I'm triggered, I have vicarious traumatization. All of a sudden, my amygdala set off and I'm disrupted, okay? But what I want to do is I want to have empathy. I want to think about that poor 24-year-old kid. I want to remember, oh yeah, that's awful, the poor parents. I want to have perspective. I want to wake up, I go, oh yeah, that's sad, okay? So I'm aroused emotionally. And instead of going to the dysregulation and going into distress and waking up my trauma, okay, or my memories into the fight, fright, freeze, which is the stress response, I want to go to, yeah, that was really, really hard and difficult. I remember that. But then think about the people involved in that accident and go, that was really difficult. Have empathetic concern. And then I want to, because I'm driving, so I clearly can't stop and do anything heroic. I can't be a martyr. I can't save anything. I want to set good intentions to that situation. I want to think about the parents of that 24-year-old. I want to think about the workers and hope they're safe. And you know what I'm going to be compassionate about? I'm not going to get pissed off at all the drivers around me or get angry that I'm going to be a little late. I'm going to have patience and kindness because you know what? That's a really sad situation and I'm going to be grateful that I'm okay. So this is the kind of thing that I want to kind of build up and work towards, because I'm going to recognize that something happen to create this situation, and I'm going to have compassion for the people that clearly suffered something really, really great. So this is what we want to work towards. Because if I go to this dysregulation, okay, in empathetic distress, which many caregivers experience, leads to the stress response, it leads to burnout. Whereas self-compassion activates a neural network related to positive emotions, and what it releases is oxytocin, which is known for social bonding, greater relaxation, more willingness to trust others, and general psychological stability. It appears to help reduce the stress response and reduce general anxiety in people when it is produced. So what I'm going to do is tell you some tricks on how to get you to release that in your body. And the spoiler alert is that it does not require medication or supplement. So that's really exciting. So as much as it is sad that this flower is not thriving, it does not warrant a. So we want to really develop with self-compassion some perspective taking and recognize that, you know what, it's okay. There's certain things that we really need to respond to, but there's certain things that when I spill a cup of coffee or I forgot to do something, I really don't have to beat myself up, and I'm not stupid. Okay, and I don't have to, have such grave reactions to things that don't require it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a few benefits of self-compassion, because I know I haven't convinced you yet. I'm pretty sure I haven't. So I got work to do. So there are health benefits. So this all seems kind of nice. It reduces inflammation, it supports immune function, it speeds up recovery from illness, leads to increased longevity. And you're going, that's really nice, Emery, that's great. But here's why. Because you're reducing the stress response. And if you attended the stress in the brain presentation, what you're doing is you're shutting off the amygdala and you're reducing the levels of cortisol and adrenaline that are coursing through your body. We talked about the whole idea of having that chronic stress that caregivers have, where they're constantly stressed. And when you're having all of those hormones, the two main hormones, which is the cortisol and the adrenaline, it can either lead to diabetes, arthritis, cardiac issues. It can make you more susceptible to colds, flus, all of this. So you're more at risk of getting sick. You're sicker longer. So you never really recover, and you're always under. You're never ever feeling good and feeling healthy and feeling strong. And so what self-compassion does is it gives your body a chance to build up that immune system, to be a little stronger. And by reducing your stress and cutting yourself some slack and being kind to yourself, you're actually physically building up your immune system. And this is the benefit. So that's one. Okay. Second benefit is for your emotional well-being. Now this is really powerful. What it allows you to do is to get better emotional regulation. It actually reduces depression and anxiety. And again, it's that stress, because you're not constantly firing off that amygdala and worrying and in chronic stress. We know that it has a really huge impact on this, because when you're constantly in stress, you're reducing your levels of dopamine and serotonin, which actually elevate mood. and help increase mood. Okay, so all those antidepressants and all those medications that help us with mood are actually, serotonin and dopamine based, and we want you to naturally be able to do that. But stress just actually depletes those neurotransmitters, and we want you to be able to, by being kind. And I know it sounds weird, but it actually can help you and enhance that goal. So, it really sounds crazy, but the research tells us it gives us a greater sense of well-being, improved relationships, because we're not reacting to everything as if it's a 10. We're recognizing, oh, I can do something nice. Have you ever noticed that when you do something kind for others, it actually makes you feel good? Um, and again, that balanced emotion. And when we increase our oxytocin, which there's some really fun ways to do that, it's actually really helpful. So cognitively, when self-compassion, it actually improves memory, it increases our creativity, it helps with people being able to think outside the box and not feeling like they don't have options and choices. And it helps with decision making. And again, it ties in with the stress. But what it really does, which I thought was really, really cool, is it wakes up the prefrontal cortex because you've shut off the amygdala. You've actually woken up the prefrontal cortex to allow you to access your insight, your response flexibility, your emotion regulation, because that's where that happens in the prefrontal cortex. Your intuition, your gut instincts. It's like, wait a second, I'm not sure this feels right. Your fear regulation. This is where that happens. And when we manage our stress through self-compassion, we actually get to use all of those tools in our prefrontal cortex to go, wait a second, this actually isn't a crisis. I'm good. I can handle this because I'm going to save my energy for when I really need it. So it improves our short-term memory. It improves our decision making. It allows us to create and help us store our memories and remember the stuff that we need to remember. And and we don't feel so crazy because we're not able to hold that new information. But here's the problem, folks. We have some barriers to self-compassion. Of course we do, because we live in a world that's really highly critical and is judgmental, and we naturally, are susceptible to that. We all are, and that's what's hard to shake off. It's hard to swim in a piranha pool and not get bitten, unfortunately. And so one of the things that I hear all the time from people I love is self-criticism. And I am a recovered self-critic. I have kicked my self-critic out. She still tries to come back, but I still kick her out. But I hear it all the time. And that's the internal negative self-talk. And it's not helpful at all. So this, people. You all know this. It's the I'm so fill in the blank. You know what you say to yourself. It's not helpful. We label ourselves. I'm so, you fill in the blank. I'm so klutzy. I'm so this. I'm so that. But you're not. You had a moment, and it's okay. But that's not what we believe, right? So how many times when we were kids were we told, oh, I'm going to use my son because I know I did this to him. I did this, of course. Oh, he's so this. And I had to stop, right? I had to stop and say, don't say that anymore, right? Because he would walk around and say, oh, Mom, I'm just this. And it's like, no, baby, you're not. I shouldn't have said that. Which leads to the next one. No should. Should statements. We put so much unreasonable demands and pressure on ourselves. And we know where we get it from. We live in a very demanding society. We need to be perfect. We need to achieve such high goals. We need to be just so much. And really, we really don't. Because it makes us tired, burnt out, sick. We just need to be and do the best we can. But we put so much pressure. How many people, before someone comes over, pulls out the vacuum and starts washing the drapes and cleaning the light fixtures and washing the baseboards, and the house has to be spotless? Like, come on, really? No one cares. I'm not looking at your cobwebs when I walk in your house. I promise. Because really, it doesn't matter. I've come to your house to see you and have a visit. I could care less. But I bet you're worried, oh my God, the house has to be clean, and oh, don't. Everybody's just, right? We do this because we're worried. We're worried. So we put so much pressure on ourselves. And then we overgeneralize. We take one negative incident, and we apply it to everything. That's it. I'm a failure. I can't write. See, I got this lousy mark on this paper. That's it. I can't do it. Well, of course you can. It takes practice. It takes practice. It takes practice. I just have to keep trying. I just made a mistake. But sometimes we take one mistake and we decide we can't do it. And how unfortunate is that? And this is where, what we need to do is recognize that this is our shared humanity. We all experience this, but we don't always recognize that we experience it. So the other barriers are our early life experience. Sometimes we didn't get to grow up in a very kind environment. I could rhyme off a lot of things, and some of you are going to recognize these. Little girls are to be seen, not heard. And if you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. And you think your life was hard, and like there wasn't a lot of compassion. And if you can walk, you're fine. And you know what? Like, I just remember it was, it had to be pretty serious before I got attention. Let's just put it that way. So I just remember not thinking that it was bad until it had to be, you need to go to the hospital before it was bad. So, there wasn't a lot of cuddling for some people, there wasn't a lot of cuddling. I lived in a playpen. Some of us lived in a playpen. It was like, I got to clean the house. I got jobs to do. We didn't have that, which is why our grandparents were our favorite people, because they just picked us up and cuddled us and loved us like there was no other. And we enjoyed them. Positive beliefs about self-criticism. How many times did we hear that, I'm telling you this for your own good so you'll become a better person? Oh my goodness. It's like, telling me I'm bad and not good enough isn't going to motivate me to become better. It just makes me feel ashamed, which I will talk about in a minute. Lack of awareness. Like, some people just don't get it. And I've met those people. It's just like, they just think, nope, this is just the way it is. And because they just can't get in touch with that vulnerable side that they have. It's too scary. It's just too scary. And the shame piece, which I want to just touch on briefly. And I forgot to put a name down, which when we're done, you guys can write down. But when you try to get in touch with self-compassion, this is the really scary part. is it really it starts to open up the part of us that feels shame. Because shame is believing that you are not worthy of love and belonging. And so I'm just going to read this. When you first develop this caring towards your own suffering, and when you learn to be with your own limitations, your fears, your neuroses, and your shadowy parts, the parts you don't like about yourself, then you can bring a wholeness to caring that leads towards unconditional love, or what is called boundless loving. Now, this has no limits, but it's scary. And it's scary because when we start to see that part of us that's not pleasant, that we don't like about ourselves, the shame gremlins, Brene Brown calls this the shame gremlins, start to come up. We think if people see this, they're not going to like us. They're going to think we're bad. They're going to reject us. They're going to say that, we don't deserve this and that we aren't worthy of love and belonging. But the truth is that we all have these shame gremlins, and they were given to us. They don't define us. They were given to us, and every single person has them. The reality is that we need to become aware of them and be kind and recognize that it's okay. We all have them. We just need to befriend them and recognize that, we can work with them and know that it's okay. We're not perfect, and we don't have to be perfect, and nobody's perfect, because I don't have a problem when it's kind of like with our children or with people we love. When they make mistakes, we have no problem forgiving them. So say I get into an argument with my friend, or my friend is in a bad mood, and she is negative with me, or says something hurtful. But then later comes back and says, Emery, I am so sorry. I was just having such a rough day, and I was really hurt, and I took it out on you. And you know what I do, because she's my friend and I love her? I say, you know what? Yeah, we all have those moments. So what self-compassion does is recognizes that's our common humanity. I have bad days too. So why can't I forgive myself for the same thing? So this is the whole idea of recognizing that shame isolates us and says that because we make those mistakes and we do those things, that we don't deserve that. But of course we do, because we can do that for others. I love my kids and I would die for my kids. And so when they make mistakes and they do stuff that tick me off, and trust me, it happens, I don't stop loving them. I really don't. So we want to develop that love for ourselves. Okay? So myths, my goodness, lots of myths. Is self-compassion, self-pity? Far from it. It's actually more perspective taking and less rumination, because it's about recognizing the common humanity and the fact that we all experience suffering and pain and hurt. So I'm not going to feel sorry for myself if I know everybody else feels this way. Think of COVID. We're all in this together. So when I have a moment of going, this really sucks that I can't see my parents at Christmas, I connect with the fact that other people can't either. So I'm not just feeling sorry for myself. I'm feeling this sadness for everybody. Is it personal weakness? Absolutely not. I'm more emotionally resilient, and I have more inner strength because I recognize that I'm feeling this, and I'm going to own this, and I'm going to work with this, and I'm going to get through this. Is it selfish? No, because the more compassion I have for myself, I'm going to extend to others, because I think, yeah, this is really hard, and I see it's hard for you too. And I'm going to connect with you because I want to share this compassion. I care, right? I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I'm just feeling. Self-indulgent. It's actually less self-indulgent because I recognize I'm not the only one. Again, it's this connection. Self-compassion allows me to recognize connection, that I'm not the only one. And demotivating, this is interesting. I realized that it's less demotivating because I'm not beating myself up. This is what happens when you beat yourself up. I'm working on this presentation and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to screw this up. Oh my gosh. And you know what ends up happening? I procrastinate. I don't work on it. I postpone it. I postpone it. I think, oh, this sucks. I'm never going to do this. They're going to hate it. Oh my gosh. And guess what happens? I beat myself up and I don't give it my all. I don't try. And I become ego driven. All I'm worrying about is me. I'm not thinking about you guys. I'm not thinking about the fact that I probably can do this, that it's okay. But when I self-compassion, I go, you know what? I'm just hitting a block. Maybe I need to just go for a walk, grab a cup of tea, and come back and keep going. I'm just hitting that lull because this is what happens in life. We hit our highs and lows. But with self-compassion, I recognize the low and go, you know what? I'm hitting a block. I'm going to go for a walk, take a breather, do a little gardening or something, and then come back and try again. It's not demotivating. It's actually motivating because I'm recognizing, okay, I need a break. What a difference. So I come back and I try again. So the brain in our negative bias that our brain has, which is a primal instinct, is like, no, I disagree with this. No compassion. We can't do this. And the heart says, I think everyone needs to step back for a minute, take a deep breath, and hug someone they disagree with, okay? Because there's a battle, right? Our heart and our brain sometimes battle it out. The brain's like, no. And the heart goes, shh, just let it happen. And this is what's going to happen for us when we try to embrace self-compassion. We just have to just let it happen and just cut ourselves some slack. And just have a big hug. So we're going to briefly go through some strategies. Now, I talked about pause in the previous, and I'll go over it again. Pause is paying attention and using the sensory experiences around us, okay? And this is not, again, these are strategies that are not difficult. This is really just paying attention. I'm sitting in a chair. I hear the birds outside. I can feel my legs on the chair. I'm taking a deep breath. I have a diffuser going on. I can smell the essential oils. I can see the light. And I'm just trying to, to take some deep breaths and get calm and de-stress. Again, you're just trying to get back into your body and be calm and name it. What am I feeling? What's going on? Okay? Pay attention to your body. Okay? Where am I feeling stress? Where am I tight? Where am I feeling some discomfort? Okay? And try to really just allow yourself to soften and soothe. And whatever is just kind of bothering you, stressing you out, to let go of that. And try to adopt. So we know we have the self-critic. We know they're in there. Try to get another little voice in there. Bring another little voice and go, yeah, no. You can go have a break. Take 15 minutes. Hey, let's start with 1 minute. 1 minute. We're just going to have a nice, kind voice come in. You can pick any voice you want, by the way. You just pick any voice you want to tell you, you know what? You're okay. Don't worry about it. Okay? And I mean any voice you want. And just, it's all right. And take a self-compassion break. And that could be anything. That could be, making a cup of tea and just sitting on the couch. It could be sitting at your window and watching the bird feeder. It could be, again, small, simple, something just, even if it's a minute, to just being kind to yourself. And I'll expand on that in a moment. So what you want to do is just pause and pay attention, get back into your body, deep breathing, just breathe and soften your body, just relax your body and just take some deep breaths and just tell yourself, I'm okay. I'm a good person. I mean, you don't believe that right now. I don't expect you to. It's a lot of work to do this. But even if you start with, I'm not the worst person in the world, I'm pretty sure you can find some examples. And you're really, really just going to try to begin low and slow. So I told you that I would give you some examples of releasing oxytocin, which is a gift. Put on your favorite song and dance. I do this. It embarrasses my kids to no end, and I love it. Join minds in motion. You want to release some oxytocin. That would do it. Do a little exercise. Go for a walk. Get some sun. Sit out your front porch, your back deck, even if it's for 5 minutes. Play. Put on a movie or a show that you love that gets you to cry. You may not be able to go for a swim unless you buy a lake. Have a bath. Snuggle with a pet. Hug a friend who is safe. Okay. Listen to music, deep breathing, eat dark chocolate. So for those of you who don't like it, I apologize. Meditate, even if it's for a minute. Research shows that any act of self-kindness and deep breathing actually begins the practice and starts to change the brain. I'm not kidding. Even if it's for a minute, 5 minutes, it actually begins to plant the neural networks to just start the pattern. So watch a comedy, laugh. These are all things that you can do to watch some cat videos. I mean, sometimes what I do, if I'm having one of those days where I just, I will watch some hockey highlights that are positive for me. And I will just and I'm smiling and I'm just like, oh, yeah, my team won, yay. And it just releases the oxytocin. And I'm in a much better mood and an elevated mood. So these are all simple things. It could be for 2 minutes. It could be for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. Take a walk through your garden. It doesn't, pick a few weeds. It doesn't matter. Start small, okay? I don't want you thinking you have to renovate a room and get the Buddha statues and you have to buy the clothing and no. This is gentle, slow, okay? And the other pathways to self-compassion is taking care of your body. Have one healthy meal a day. Allow your thoughts. Go, okay, I'm thinking negative. Wow, isn't that interesting? So maybe for 1 minute, you say, just for 1 minute a day, I'm going to think nice things about myself. Or when I'm doing the dishes or loading the dishwasher, I'm going to think of one thing I like about myself today. Just one thing. Okay? Just one. I like how my hair looks today because I washed it. It could be that simple. Okay? Emotionally accepting your feelings. Because here's the thing. Feelings are not right or wrong. Your thoughts are not good or bad. They're thoughts. It's what you do with them. It's what you do with your thoughts and feelings that are the dilemma. And with your feelings give you information of, oh, I need to pay attention to myself. I need to kind of go in there and pay attention. So if you're feeling something, again, all you have to do is pay attention. Oh, I'm feeling kind of sad. So what's going on? Relational, connecting with someone that you can be authentic with. Even if it's calling up someone and saying, I don't even want to talk about the negative stuff. Can we just gab about something irrelevant? Can we just be goofy? Can we just whatever? But it's the connection. It's feeling that connection that can be so helpful. And then nurturing your values. However you practice your own spirituality, it's nurturing your values. And that could be through prayer, that could be through just sitting and breathing and convening with nature, you know, going for a walk, through the park or sitting, watching the birds. I mean, it's really, really powerful. I took my dog for a walk this morning and I was so paying attention to the trees and it was just like, I was just connecting with that and the sounds. And it was just like, okay, and getting grounded, And this is what's important to me is just what's important to me? What do I care about? And so sleep, going to bed 15 minutes earlier, staying in bed for 5 minutes, a little longer, and just lying there going, okay, today I'm going to find one thing I'm grateful for, and I'm not, when I criticize myself once, I'm going to say something nice. Again, we just try to do simple things to begin that practice of being kind to ourselves. And it sounds silly. It may sound silly, but it's powerful because how long have you been beating yourself up? It's not helpful. And you don't deserve it. So, I want to thank you for listening. And I found this, and this to me was just brilliant. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. And I think, especially if you're from areas where there's lots of mosquitoes, although I think they're everywhere because they drive me crazy. I try to kill them all before I go to bed. I want you to think about self-compassion and the practice of self-compassion like a mosquito. They're really small, but it's really powerful. Have you ever, when it gets near you, it completely consumes you. Start small. It's not necessary to go big. The act of starting small is being self-compassionate. And it will keep you going. It will have an impact. And it's so important because you deserve this. You are worthy of love and belonging. And most importantly, you're worthy of love and belonging to yourself. Because if you can build that resilience, if you can build that connection to yourself, it is going to be so much easier to handle all the struggles that you deal with every single day. And you don't need another monumental pressure or task or challenge to have to deal with on top of what you need to do. But a little kindness can go a long way. And self-compassion asks, what is good for you? Not if you are good enough. Because we can tell you that you're good enough. We can tell you that you're wonderful. There's lots of stuff out in the world that can tell you how wonderful you are, but you've got to believe that for yourself. And self-compassion can help you start to see that for yourself. Because there's a saying that I began to say to myself is that you are imperfectly perfect, just the way you are. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie.
You're welcome. Oh, we're 11 o'clock. Wow.
Are you okay to stop sharing your screen and then we can?
I am. Let me just get to my thing here.
That was a wonderful presentation.
I hope so.
Full of such important messaging for all of us.
Stop sharing.
And I particularly love your images in there that give us those bright spots of humor and that we really need to see and hear. So I think that's wonderful, and thank you for those messages.
Mm-hmm. I gotta stop sharing.
Yeah, so if you just go to the bottom and where it says share screen, I think you can just say stop.
Is it stop video? No.
No, it should be stop share screen at the bottom, or maybe it's at the top under view options.
Oh, there's the big red button.
Oh, perfect.
Missed that one. Missed that one. It's okay. I'm going to be compassionate and not beat myself up for that. How's that?
Does anyone have any questions or thoughts for Anne Marie that they'd like to share after today's session? Feel free to, I think everybody's unmuted, but if not, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and share your question or your comment.
I have a question.
Yeah.
After Brian was diagnosed, we read quite a bit. And the one line that troubled me was, don't take things personally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I find that, to myself, I thought, then I have to be an angel.
Oh.
Because I don't know how you cannot take things personally, even if you know it's the disease.
Exactly.
It still hurts.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is the part where self-compassion can really help you recognize the difference in acknowledging your hurt and separating the disease. So what that advice didn't say to you was, it's okay that you still feel hurt when that behavior happens. And that's where what needs to happen is that the behavior happens. It isn't personal, but it still hurts. So what do I do for me to work through that hurt? And what can happen is you find a way to process that hurt. And what does that mean? Because he may not have the capacity to acknowledge that hurt and apologize for it, and recognize that's what he's doing, right? Because we don't always get the benefit of the I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? But it's, so what do I now do with this hurt? And this is where self-compassion and connecting with other sources of support can help you process that I was feeling this, I'm feeling this, and I'm hurting. And you can process that hurt and not feel like you have to minimize it or ignore it, because you don't have to. You get to acknowledge it and say, this is real, I'm hurt, and I want to find a way to acknowledge this and process this so that I don't keep feeling like every time this happens, I get triggered and I feel like this. So you begin to develop, I'm losing my words. You begin to develop a way to respond so that you don't have this recurring wound.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is where it's so hard, because this is the caregiver's for me, it's like a dilemma. It's like, so do I have to take this all the time and just put up with it? No, absolutely not. But it's almost like you create this armor of, when it happens, I've got a strategy, but I still get to acknowledge the feelings until I become resilient enough to recognize, oh, here we go. Okay. And you click into your strategies to go until eventually it becomes, oh, there's the disease. But you need to, it requires work, and it requires a lot of self-compassion to go, I deserve to be acknowledged for the hurt that I'm feeling. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Anne Marie?
I have a question, Sarah. How do you deal with armchair experts who tell you how you are supposed to react to somebody when they're not the ones that are immersed in it 24/7, right?
Okay.
Now, how do you deal with these people who tell you how you should be responding? Because sometimes I lose it, right?
Yeah.
I do. I lose my mind over
Yeah.
things, and then I have to go back and apologize and stuff like that. But anyways,
Okay.
so how do you do?
The first thing I'm going to say is it's understandable that you lose it. So I'm going to acknowledge that, because of course it is frustrating, and I'm going to say annoying, when people who, Brene Brown talks about this. It's you know, you step into the arena and you are living it, you're experiencing it, you're in it, and you're fighting it, and you're dealing with it, and the people in the stands are just watching and being critical, and they don't have the right, or is it appropriate or kind to be telling you how and what, because they've yet to experience. It's kind of like when non-smokers tell people who smoke that they should quit.
Mm.
I learned very quickly not to do that, because it's like it's not kind, right? However, so you don't feel your best self when you snap at them and say, you know, shut the hell up. Although it feels good in the moment, right? It's just that release of, so what I would say to you is this, is I would take a really deep breath, because I've had to learn to do this myself as a professional, is I would say, I'll take that under advisement, thank you, and walk away. Because what it does is it says, okay, you've shared your thought, I'll take that under advisement and walk away. Because you have nothing to prove to them.
Mm. Yes.
This is your journey. This is your experience. You are the expert. They aren't. And I would kind of do a reflection around who you would feel most comfortable talking to about what this is and how this works for you. Like, who are the people that you would consult with about where you want advice from and who you want to consult with, and only really work with them. And when people start, you know, start to think about some responses that you might want to have, and say, well, thank you for your concern. I'll take that under advisement. Because what it does is it kind of, and you could tell I've had a lot of practice with this. Right, and it was more in the parenting arena, right? Because I got a lot of advice, because I did things very different with my kids than my parents and my husband's parents. And I was like, thank you, I'll take that under advisement, when really I was flipping the bird and going, I'm not listening, right? I'm not listening. Stop it. I'm not listening. And it was my way of being kind to them and not making them feel bad, but saying, I'm not listening here. But you can say what you want to say, but let's end this conversation and talk about something else. At the same time, what you're doing is you're going to go to the people and you're going to establish for yourself the circle of people that you are actually going to consult with and work with. Because there's no point in making other people feel bad about it. And there's no point in you having to apologize for something that you don't need to apologize for. Mm-hmm. Your feelings are justified, but it's icky, right? Yeah. Because they're not sorry that they're being the priest and the expert and because they sit there and they go, well, you should, and you should, and you should. And you don't need to educate them. You don't have a hope of educating them. Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah.
Right? Like I learned a long time ago, my dad's my dad and it's just the way it is. I got to just accept that. But I found a way to go, thanks, Dad. That's an interesting idea. I'll take that under advisement. Shuts it right down. Does that sound
Thank
okay?
you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I feel your pain. I really I feel it.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I think sometimes as caregivers, the more we feel we do it because more or less to make ourselves feel better, because we don't have any self-compassion. Right. We just keep going and beating ourselves up, and then we push ourselves to do more and more and more.
Yeah.
Instead of taking a step back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's nice to see you, Karen. I keep thinking about you. And I think it's important because we forget that the people we're caring about have their own journey, and we're there to support them, but not sacrifice ourselves for them. And the best thing we can do is take care of ourselves so that when it's really time, we're there for them. The more we kind of make sure that there's a circle of support for them and not just us, right? Not just one person, but there's more than us. Then we have ourselves to fall back on, right? And so that self-compassion allows us to have that perspective, because we don't end up drowning and becoming so weak that we can't be there for them when we really would have wanted to be there for them. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so we don't miss the really good stuff, and we don't miss the good moments, right? So when we can let go and let other people take care of the pieces that we don't have to, and we can build up our strength and our resilience, we get to do other things and be present. And sharing the load is really important, because that's what community's for. So self-compassion is really powerful. It can be really, really powerful. But start slow, Karen, because I know you're busy.
You said a very important thing there that I just want to touch on. And that is getting to the point where you get to understand that this person, each of us, we all have a journey, and that is that person's journey. That person's journey is going to take that person into places that are dark and scary, mm-hmm. and full of pain. And we share the pain because that's maybe our spouse or a member of our family. Yeah. But we cannot take that person away from that journey, because that's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
All we could do is try to support them
Right.
as they journey on in their way, and we're going to have our own journey too. This is our journey too.
Yeah.
And that was very important for me to accept, that this was his journey. And although it's horrible, I can't do anything about it. You have to accept that. That is another thing, accepting that you cannot do anything to change that person's journey. You just have to accept it and just pray. I'm a prayerful person, and I pray a lot. And I just pray that the Lord give me strength to take me through this journey with him until the end. It's tough.
Yeah.
And it's tougher because of this situation that we are going through now with this COVID, that we cannot, like I was thinking this morning, I'm right now, I'm at a very emotional point. Only because it's hard that I hear my own voice, and that's it. Unless I call someone, I don't hear anybody else. It's lonely.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary. And you're not allowed to visit more than once a week. You still can't really be with them the way that you used to because of this COVID. And it's really horrible. It is, I don't know how it's going to end or what's going to happen, but you can't be with your loved one. You can't touch. I can't even want to visit him. I have to sit 6 feet from him with a mask. Sometimes he doesn't even recognize who I am. So it's not only being kind to ourselves, but it's also trying to find ways to navigate through these hard times and keep your sanity and keep your strength and keep your faith. It's really hard. Yeah.
Thanks for saying that, Kathleen. And we certainly hope that you recognize that that's what we're here to, to do, is to help you through this particularly challenging time. And we want you to know your client support coordinators, us as education coordinators, Anne Marie, we're all so pleased to be able to provide that support and information that you need to help get you through those difficult times, the emotions as well. There's so many things involved along the journey, as you say, and you're right. We certainly need to have that self-compassion, and but we also have to understand that we're navigating a very different journey, a journey that we probably never anticipated. And there's days where we know where the path is going, and other days where things happen and it completely throws us off that path. So there's lots of ups and downs. There's lots of emotions associated with it, but hopefully, with all of us here today, you're not alone in that. And we're so pleased that you were able to share that with us.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about in a lot of ways, Kathleen. I'm going through different situations. I deal with both my mother and my husband that's not well. Trouble is, I ended up beating myself up so much with trying to do everything that I myself have become sicker and sicker and sicker. So I'm not even capable of looking after them, because right now I can't even look after me.
Yeah.
And the only way I've been able to keep going is by listening to a lot of these programs like the Zoom, talking to the care coordinators, I've been doing some of these three a week, just to be able to learn, to understand, and to make myself aware, to quit beating myself up.
Yeah.
Because I beat myself up so much.
Yes.
That it wasn't getting me anywhere, and I wasn't helping anybody else.
Karen, you know, I tell you what, I was beating myself up a lot, especially when I had to put him in the home, because I always felt that I wanted to look after my husband until he passed away.
Yes.
And it was very, very, very hard for me. And I went to my doctor, like, because I was beginning to get like feelings of anxiety, and I can't breathe. I feel like I can't breathe and stuff like that. And he sent me to a counselor, and she is wonderful. I don't Zoom. Now we are talking on the phone. I used to go to the office, but now we're on the phone once a month, and I get to talk to her and just spill everything I feel, all my emotions. And I think that is what is keeping me here. Just having one person to talk to.
Yeah.
It's so important to get it out, you know, because when you don't talk to anybody for a whole day and you just sit and permeate in this grief, it really does a number on you.
It does.
And I consider myself to be a very strong person. And I feel myself like withering, you know, and I'm not healthy either. I have a bad back from dealing with my husband, and I have a bum knee that I had replaced last June, and it's still not healing properly. So I am struggling to take care of myself too.
Stress does absolutely horrible things to a person's body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And and this is the only way I'm trying to deal and work out on learn how to deal with some of these stresses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And I empathize with you. I know exactly how you feel. But I'll let you know a little thing that I do sometimes that really helps me. I drive, so I take the car and I go sit by the water, even if it's for an hour. And just that, getting out for that hour, looking at the boats go by. I love being close to water. It just does something to me. It helps immensely.
It does.
And sometimes too, just to make it a little bit more juicy, I'll buy a Dairy Queen and take it with me.
Treat yourself, Kathleen. Way to go.
And I'll say, I deserve this.
Yes.
You know? And it really helps. I come home and I feel a little bit more renewed, you know?
Yes.
Yep.
You got to do one good thing to yourself every day. Yeah. Every day, one good thing.
Yeah.
Really good words of wisdom from everybody. Well,
You're amazing women.
Yeah.
We all are.
That's right.
You just have
Can
to
I
acknowledge
plug
that.
one thing?
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks, Sarah, Shelby.
Anne-Marie and Sarah.
Very welcome.
Very much.
Thank you very much, all of you, for attending today. Thank you. A very special thank you to Anne-Marie for providing this education that's been just so informative and so enlightening for all of us. So thank you for that. And we do hope that you enjoyed the rest of your day. We hope we'll see you back for the next education session. And you know where to reach us if there's anything you need those times. We're always here for you. So.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye now.